have a mother who lives alone. Contemplating her circumstances, I approached my husband about the idea of living closer to my mother's house. However, he flatly retorted, "We are not moving near your mother's house. We should live with my parents instead." I was shocked. He just disregarded my feelings and tried to impose his will. With a deep sense of frustration, I decided to take matters into my own hands. My name is Isabella. I'm 30 years old. I live with my husband, Mark, and our 2-month-old son, Chris. Mark and I work at the same company. Although we are in different departments, we often work together on projects, and we share a number of acquaintances. We had a grand wedding celebration with our colleagues, and I was determined to make our married life a happy one. Initially, Mark and I lived in his apartment. However, as it was quite cramped, we decided to move. We wanted to have a child eventually, so we agreed to move into a larger apartment and consider buying a house later on. Casually browsing property listings on my smartphone, I started a conversation with Mark. "I don't want to quit my job even after we have a child," I said. Mark responded with a smile. "You love your work, Isabella. You should do what you like." "But it seems that the competition for daycare spots is pretty high. We have to think about that too if I'm planning to return to work." "Well, I guess you're right. We'll figure it out somehow," Mark nonchalantly replied, fiddling with his smartphone. I then decided to bring up an idea that I had been contemplating for a while. "You know, there's something I've been wanting to talk about," I began. "Oh? What is it?" he asked. "I'd like us to live closer to my mother's house, just in case something happens." "Why would we do that?" he inquired. "Well, you know my father passed away a few years ago, so my mother is living alone now. I want to be able to rush over if something happens." "Your mother seems fine. There's no need to worry about that now." "Well, yes, but I think it's better to have someone close by who can support us when we have a child." His response was noticeably reluctant. I tried to persuade him further. "If it's just the two of us raising the child, it could be quite difficult, right? If my mom is nearby, I believe it'll ease your burden," I insisted. "Nah, I can't do that," he countered. "What? Why not?" "Because if we live near her mom, we'll have to see her often. That would be stressful." "I understand your concern, but I promise I'll try my best not to burden you." "When we have a child, you won't be able to work for a while, which means we'll be living on my income alone, right? So why should I have to deal with the extra stress?" "Well," in response to my silence, he coldly stated, "We're not moving anywhere near your mother's house." "But," I protested, "after giving birth, you won't be able to contribute to the rent or the living expenses, right? Yet, you're the only one thinking about what's convenient for you. Don't you think that's a bit selfish?" "Hold on, what kind of logic is that? Sure, I wouldn't be able to work for a few months after giving birth, but does he really need to be so negative about it? Don't you think we should try harder to cooperate as a married couple?" My husband's actions didn't make any sense, and I felt that if I continued to speak up, things would not progress in a positive way. We're newlyweds. I don't want to quarrel at this point. "Fine. I got it." Leaving these words behind, I left the room. I couldn't bear this atmosphere any longer. Eventually, I gave up on living near my mother's home and decided to settle in an area close to both of our workplaces. After moving, work and our marital relationship were going fairly well, and we were leading relatively peaceful days. One day, I found out I was pregnant. My work was going well, so I felt a little guilty, but my child was my top priority. Taking handovers into account, I worked up until the last possible moment before my family leave. Since I had more free time after starting my family leave, I started visiting my mother more often. My husband Mark was coming home past midnight almost every day due to overtime work. If things continued this way, I would undoubtedly have to single-handedly raise our child after giving birth. As it would be my first child, everything was new to me and I felt a lot of anxiety. One day, I was visiting my mother at home and I blurted out my real feelings to her. "Mom, I'm really looking forward to the baby coming, but I'm also very anxious." "What's wrong, Isabella? That's not like you. You have Mark, don't you?" "Mark seems busy with work, and when I asked him to take care of our baby together after giving birth, he yelled at me, saying, 'How can I, a man, do that?'" As I explained, my voice trembled and my mother looked worried. I decided to express my feelings clearly to my mother. "Hey, Mom, can I come back here for a while after the baby is born?" "Well," my mother tilted her head and thought for a moment. "It's going to be tough at first, and it would be a bit of a hassle for me to commute to your place every day. I would be grateful if you could come over to our house, Isabella. Really? Can I stay? Of course. I'd be happy to spend time with my grandchild, and nothing would make me happier than being able to support my daughter. Thank you, Mom. I'll talk to Mark about it when I get home today. By revealing my anxiety to my mother, my heart felt significantly lighter. Right. I should talk to Mark properly. As a couple, we need to consider our child's future carefully. That night, I talked to Mark about the situation with my mother. However, his reaction was not what I was hoping for. What? Go back to your parents' house? You must be kidding. I'm serious. I leaned forward trying to convince my husband. I'm nervous because it's my first time, and I need to rest for a month after giving birth. I don't think I'll be able to do the housework. That's why I want to go back to my mother's house for a while. That's ridiculous. Who's going to cook for me? Who's going to do the laundry? Can't you manage on your own for just a little while, Mark? Huh? I'm out there working and now you want me to do housework too? You're a monster, Mark huffed. But in my confusion, Mark sighed heavily. I get it. I should help out, right? Huh? Help out? That's what I'm saying. I'll assist with childcare. I'll handle the chores and childcare for the first month after birth, okay? That way, there's no need for you to go back to your mother's home, right? Well, I guess so. Okay, then it's settled. I'll help out. This discussion's over. I understand. I wasn't entirely convinced, but the best thing for our family would be if we could work together to raise our child. I felt some apprehension, but I decided to trust Mark's words. I gave up the idea of going back to my mother's home and called my mom to explain the situation. I see. I was looking forward to your visit, so it's a bit disappointing. But it's a good thing, right? Mark said he'll help, hasn't he? That's true, but I thought it would be more reassuring with you, Mom, given your experience with childcare. Oh, there are plenty of couples who take on everything from the start without returning home. You should take advantage of Mark's support and try your best together. Okay, I understand. As I was about to hang up, my mother stopped me. Oh, and... what's up? Always tell me when something happens. I'm always on your side, Isabella. Thanks, Mom. I'll try my best with Mark. I needed to work hard to keep from worrying my mom, and so I resolved to take on childcare with my husband. A few days later, our first son was born, and the tumultuous life of parenting began. As promised, Mark did help out, albeit in a limited way. His involvement amounted to doing some light shopping after work and taking out the garbage, tasks I had managed. However, Mark was stubbornly hands-off when it came to childcare. He had never changed a diaper or even made a bottle. I was tired from the unfamiliarity of childcare and had no energy to complain. This kind of parenting life continued for about 2 months. One evening, after putting our son to bed and returning to the living room, Mark arrived home. I'm home. Welcome home. I'll start making dinner, so just wait a bit. What? At least keep something ready to heat up. You're not good at managing things, are you? Well, what can I do? Our little Chris just fell asleep. It's been 2 months and you still can't get him to sleep properly? Never mind. I'll go take a bath first. Have dinner ready by the time I'm out. With that, Mark left the room. What was that about? Who does he think he is? Why does he demand perfection from me when he doesn't contribute to childcare at all? My irritation built, and I wanted to throw something, but I couldn't wake up Chris, who had just fallen asleep. I held back my anger. 30 minutes later, without saying a word, Mark started eating his dinner right after he got out of the bath. As I stared at him, shocked by his behavior. Oh yeah, I have something to talk about. Mark stopped me. Talk? What all of a sudden? I got a call from Dad today. Seems Mom fell and can't move her leg well. What? Your mother? According to my husband Mark, his mother had gone shopping with a neighborhood friend, had a dramatic fall, and was immediately taken to the hospital in an ambulance. Even after several hours, her leg isn't moving and the doctor diagnosed that she might need assistance going forward. I see. That's hard. Your father must be having a rough time. To be honest, I was more worried about my father-in-law than my mother-in-law. From the beginning, my mother-in-law did not like me. She was even cold to me at our marriage introduction. When I announced my pregnancy, "We don't need a girl, do we?" she was the type to say nonchalantly. The one who always scolded my mother-in-law and stood by me was my father-in-law. Let me know if you need anything. I'll be there for you if you need me. Each time he met me, my father-in-law encouraged me like this. If my stay-at-home mother-in-law couldn't move, my father-in-law would be really struggling. While recalling the happenings at my in-laws' home, Mark dropped an unbelievable proposition.
Here's the thing, I had a great idea. Let's live together with my parents at my home.
What?
Don't you think it's a good plan? I'm worried about Mom, and you, Isabella, are not working now. If we live together, it will reduce Dad's burden, and he would be happy.
Wait just a minute. You're joking, right? The reason I'm not working is to take care of our son, Chris. I can't suddenly decide to live with your parents.
But it's been 2 months already. You must have some free time now. Right now, Mom is the priority. You should understand that.
Is he serious? When I suggested living near my mom, he outright refused, but now it suits him just perfectly. Mark is not the type to visit his home frequently, so it was convenient so far, but living with my mother-in-law is out of the question. Knowing Mark, if we lived together, he would certainly side with his mother and be harsh on me. Unable to bear it any longer, I vented my frustrations. Don't mess with me. You flat out denied when I wanted to live near my mother, but now it's okay when it's about you?
What? What's that about? Your mother is fine, isn't she?
But, unlike your house, my mom lives alone. What if something happens? You're not considering my anxieties, are you?
Shut up. Listen here. You married me and became my wife. You should stop arguing and listen to what I say.
At that moment, any residual affection I had for my husband vanished instantly. He doesn't consider my feelings, let alone seeing me as an equal. I cannot continue a marital relationship with him. Seeing my silence, Mark probably thought I had agreed and dropped this line.
Anyway, it's decided that we're going to live together. We're moving as soon as possible, so get the stuff packed by tomorrow.
I understand.
You should have just obediently listened to me from the start.
With that, Mark left for the bedroom without even clearing the dinner dishes. The next day, once Mark left for work, I packed the minimum necessary stuff and left the house. Of course, just for me and my son. When I returned to my mother's house with my son, my mother was initially shocked, but accepted our situation once I explained. As he returned home from work, my husband, Mark, called after realizing that my son and I were not there.
Hey, where are you right now?
At my mother's place, Mark.
What? What the heck are you doing without my permission? Get back here right now.
Well, our son's already asleep, and it's late. So no. Besides, I'm not planning on returning.
What the?
Mark yelled at me over the phone, something that was rare for me to oppose him.
Listen here, if you don't come back right now, we're getting a divorce. You got it?
A divorce?
That's right. Didn't I tell you? I'm moving to my parents' house. If we divorce now, you'll be jobless. That's gonna be a problem for you, huh?
I couldn't see his face, but I could tell from his tone of voice that he was smirking. To him, I responded coldly. I don't see that as a problem.
What?
I have no objections to the divorce. So please, send the divorce papers to the court.
What are you saying? You're the one who's going to be in trouble if we get a divorce.
Maybe he thought that if he provoked me with a blaming tone, I would listen to him. I was thoroughly disgusted by his naive thinking. If you want to move to your parents' house, go ahead. I won't.
What? You think you could just do that?
I don't need your permission. After all, we're getting a divorce. Why should I listen to what a stranger has to say?
Who do you think you are talking like that?
My patience with Mark, who still looked down on me, had reached its limit. Enough is enough. Who the hell do you think you are? How much more do you have to belittle someone before you're satisfied? I didn't get married to become your slave. Stop treating women like they're stupid.
What's going on? Isabella, calm down.
Calm down? I can't keep quiet after being belittled this much. If we can't support each other as a couple, then I don't need a man like you. Divorce? I'd be more than happy to. Live by yourself at your parents' house. Never involve me again. With that, I hung up the phone. Mark kept calling persistently, but I ignored all of them. Then he started to send me disturbingly affectionate texts. Isabella, I can't live without you. You don't have to live with my parents. Please come back. I understand. Let's live with your mother, just the three of us. 1 month later, his love messages abruptly stopped, and he unexpectedly agreed to the divorce. It was all thanks to my father-in-law. When Mark complained about the situation to him, he ended up getting scolded instead.
Listen, Mark, you can't just impose the idea of living together on someone.
But Dad!
Oh, shut up. You need to learn more about the world, and that's why Isabella left you. It's pitiful.
My stern father-in-law, after scolding my husband, instructed him to proceed with the divorce. My husband, unable to defy his father, grudgingly agreed to the divorce. I filed the divorce papers that were mailed to us, and we were officially no longer a couple. Afterwards, I received an apology from my father-in-law.
Isabella, I'm truly sorry. My foolish son must have caused you trouble, hasn't he?
It's all right, sir. It's all water under the bridge now.
Live your life your way, Isabella, and thank you for everything.
I can't express enough the gratitude to my father-in-law, who has shown nothing but respect until the end. The woman I am today is thanks to him. As for me, I'm in the thick of it, juggling work and motherhood as a single mom. With help from my mother, I strive daily to become a better mother for my son. Being married and being a couple doesn't guarantee happiness. I don't need a husband to be happy. Just having my beloved son and mother by my side is more than enough for me.